my name is Morgan Monday and welcome to my channel. Today you are going to see me cook a bunch of freezer meals and food prep. I have 8 children, 7 still live at home, 3 little grandbabies, and we homeschool and work from home. So there is a lot of food going in and out of our house all day long. I feel like it's getting warmer outside, we want to play, and so I thought I would make a few things to make my life a little bit easier over the next few weeks and have some food in the freezer. I hope you enjoy this video. Let me know if you have any ideas of things you want to see in future videos down below. I just took those red potatoes and I chopped them up to all similar sizes. For red potatoes or yellow potatoes, you don't have to peel them. The peels are really soft, so they taste really good. Of course, I have my helper here. You'll see her throughout this entire video. But I am making this meal for lunch the next day, and so I'm just taking all of these potatoes, chopping them up, wash them really good, and then I am just going to put them in a pan of water and bring them to a boil and get them nice and soft. This is a spaghetti squash that I'm going to use in a breakfast casserole, and so all I'm going to do is chop it in half and put it in my Instant Pot or pressure cooker. You can see my attempt at breaking it in half by slamming it down. It didn't work, but it did work. I actually don't scrape the seeds out of my spaghetti squash before I cook it. I just wait till it's done because it's so much easier. Put a cup of water in there and put it in your Instant Pot for about 8 minutes, and then it's done. I forgot to take footage of me straining the potatoes, but after I did strain the water off of them, after they were soft, I put them in 3 9x13 glass casserole dishes. I put red onions on top of them, seasoned them with salt, pepper, and garlic powder, and then I put raw pork chops on top. I baked those until the pork chops were completely done, which was almost 20 minutes, and then that was it. They were done. I ended up putting those in the refrigerator overnight with the pork chops raw, and the next day they were ready for me to throw in the oven as soon as we got home from church, and it was super quick. I cooked those green beans in the Instant Pot, put a little Parmesan cheese on them, and that was an entire meal that was ready with tons of leftovers. The next thing I'm going to make is granola. This is seriously one of the easiest granola recipes that I make. You add 1 cup of butter or coconut oil. I tripled this recipe, but I'm going to tell you the single recipe. 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of sugar, brown sugar or coconut sugar. I used regular sugar here because I was out of everything else, so I added a little molasses to it to make it more like brown sugar. So you can use any kind of sugar. 2 cups of unsweetened coconut and 7 cups of oatmeal. My children love this granola. They eat it plain, they eat it with milk, they eat it with yogurt, they eat it with berries, they eat it all the time. I have to give it to them sparingly or this triple recipe will be gone within just a few days. My favorite way to make this recipe is with coconut sugar, and when I have coconut sugar, I do make it with that, and the children love it just as much. With coconut sugar, I find that coconut sugar tastes similar to brown sugar. Once you get everything incorporated and mixed really well, you put it into cookie sheets and bake at 300 degrees for 30 to 40 minutes, stirring every 10 to 15 minutes. Just check it. You don't want it to get too brown without stirring it. When it's done, let it cool completely and then put it in a Tupperware container and store it in your pantry for, I don't know how long. If it's probably going to be longer than a month or so, then I'd probably store it in the refrigerator or freezer. Now I'm trying to make more of like a keto granola. I added in 7 cups of coconut and 2 cups of chopped up nuts. I have walnuts, pecans, and almonds here, I believe. I just chopped them up a little bit smaller. Added those into the coconut. And then this coconut oil that I'm going to use is a butter flavored coconut oil. That brand, the Nutiva brand, is the best brand that I've had. I really like it. I wanted it to taste more buttery, so that's why I chose to use that one. You could totally just use butter as well. Mix it up really, really good. I added in here a 1/3 cup of Pure, which is an erythritol stevia blend to make this more low carb. I added in a little molasses to give it that brown sugar taste. Then you just bake and stir every 10 to 20 minutes, just like the regular granola. When you're doing freezer meals, one of my top tips is, several of my top tips, have your trash can out so that you can easily throw it away if your trash can's like in the counter or has a lid that goes up and down. Maybe figure out how to hold your lid up so that you can easily throw things away, easily keep your counters wiped and cleared, wash your dishes as you go. So that will really help you be really efficient, and it'll help it so you don't get really discouraged at the end of your freezer cooking day, knowing that you have piles of dishes or every dish in your kitchen is dirty, because that is so discouraging when that happens. Here I'm going to be making some breakfast squares. They're made with eggs and veggies. Here I'm just preparing the eggs. I use 1 carton of egg whites and about 12 eggs for the size pan that I use. You could also use 2 dozen eggs if you don't want to use any egg whites. I just like my eggs a little bit lighter. I mix them in my blender just to make it a little bit easier on me so I don't have to whisk them. In this particular pan, I have cauli rice on the bottom, a pound of bacon, a bunch of bell peppers that are chopped up that I had frozen previously, and some onions that I had frozen. So using up what I have, and then I have the bottoms of a bunch of bags of cheese. It's the end of the month here when I'm doing this, and I'm trying to use up the stuff that I have on hand, so you'll see me use lots of bottoms of bags of things. After you get it all spread out nice and evenly on your baking pan, then you just dump your egg mixture on top. Get everything kind of seasoned up the way you like it. I usually just put salt and pepper on mine. This is a second dish I made up with spaghetti squash, onions, and spinach. And then I put a little bit of Italian cheese, and then I did the exact same egg mixture on top of this one. I baked these in the oven at about 375 for about 20 to 25 minutes, or until the middle is firm and done. These warm up amazingly well in the air fryer. They are so good, and I like to add those hidden veggies in there and you don't even know they're there. Like the spaghetti squash gives it good flavor, and the cauliflower rice, you're getting lots of veggies in your breakfast and tons of protein, and you can't even taste it. And putting something together like this in the morning takes a lot more thought. So I love to have stuff like this in the freezer. Just stick it in your refrigerator overnight, and then it's ready to be thrown in the air fryer the next morning. gonna make some stuffed bell peppers. I actually had these bell peppers a while back that they weren't getting eaten fast enough, so I went ahead and cored them and put them in the freezer to use to make stuffed bell peppers at a later date when I had time, and that time is today. I took a large yellow onion, about 4 to 5 garlic cloves that I had in some olive oil, and 2 pounds of ground beef, and that was a little bit of leftover bell peppers from my egg bake that I went ahead and threw in there. Just cook that meat up until it's good and brown. I seasoned it with about a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of rosemary, a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a little bit of chili powder, a little bit of cumin, and a little bit of paprika. Just use whatever spices that you like. When this is good and done, I separated it. I put half in one pan to use for dirty rice, and the other half I left in the skillet. I added a bag of cauliflower rice and about 2 cups of brown rice. Once you get all that added, you add 2 cans of Rotel, and you get it all mixed up nice and good. You can cook it a little bit longer to cook some of the liquid out of the cauli rice, but you don't have to, because a little bit of liquid is not going to hurt, especially since you have that brown rice in there. I didn't even realize one of my children put that in front of the camera. That's so funny, the things that they sneak in that I see later when I'm editing these videos. My daughter Summer here is helping me stuff the peppers. You can fill in all the holes around the peppers too if you have extra filling, because that filling is the best part. It's so good. Then I wrap this up and get it ready to freeze. The next thing I'm gonna make is the dirty rice. I take that other pound of meat and I add in probably about 8 cups of brown rice. It is a lot of rice, I know, but this is one of my children's favorites. Sometimes I use 2 pounds of ground beef in this recipe, and sometimes I use 1. Once you get all the rice in there, you just break it up, get it stirred up really well. You can even add onions and garlic, like more onions and garlic to this recipe if you want to. Some of my children do not love onions and garlic, which is so unfortunate because they're so good. And it gives everything such great flavor. So once I get all this mixed up, I just go ahead and put it in my casserole dish. I will say that when I freeze this and then I defrost it and get ready to cook it, I add about a half a cup of water to the top of this, and then I just cook it in the oven with tin foil on top of it until it's heated through. If it's defrosted, it only takes about half an hour to heat this up. My children love these chicken nuggets. You can use pretty much any kind of chicken that you like. Chicken breast, chicken thighs, chicken tenders. Here I have an assortment of different things that I've chopped up into small pieces to use. I mix eggs and a little bit of milk for the egg wash to dip the chicken in before I dip it into the flour. I use whole wheat flour for this. You can use sprouted flour, almond flour, white all-purpose flour, whatever flour that you like or have on hand. I add in about 3 cups of flour, about a tablespoon of garlic powder, about a half tablespoon of salt, and about a half tablespoon of onion powder. Once you get everything set up and ready, I like to have everything ready when I get started so that this goes really smoothly. You just take your chicken, you dip it into the egg, and then you dip it into the flour. That is as easy as it can be. Once you do it that way, you can also take it and dip it. Once you dip it in the flour once, you can take it and dip it back in the egg and then back in the flour if you want your breading to be thicker. I don't do that. I like the breading to be a little bit thinner. trying to get some of that flour off of there. I didn't do a good enough job the first time, so I had to kind of start over. And then you just put them onto your cookie sheet ready to be baked. Now, I have frozen these raw many times, and I've also frozen them cooked. I prefer to freeze them cooked. That way the children can just get them and microwave them if they need to really easily, and they don't have to worry about baking them in the oven. But I definitely have frozen them raw and cooked them to being done when I was ready for the kids to eat them. It's just a personal preference, however you like for it to be. You just get them in an even layer on your cookie sheet, and these pieces are pretty small, so I cooked them at 375 in the oven for about 15 to 18 minutes, and then they're done. When they're done, I leave them on the cookie sheet, let them cool down on the counter a little bit, and stick them in the freezer on the cookie sheets so that they freeze just like that. Now I'm going to make up a bunch of pancakes that can easily go in the freezer or refrigerator if you're going to use them up within about a week. These are pumpkin pancakes, and they're one of our absolute favorites. I love to sneak pumpkin into baked goods, especially pancakes, because pumpkin is so good for you and the children don't even know they're there. I use sprouted flour in this recipe. I'm pretty sure I quadrupled this recipe, but the recipe is 1 cup of sprouted whole wheat flour or regular whole wheat flour, 1 cup of pumpkin, a half a cup of milk, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 3 eggs. You mix it all together and you make pancakes with it. It's so good. You can also add cinnamon. You can add some pumpkin pie spice if you like that. I've learned that we don't really like those spices in the pancakes. We like them to be more traditional, and you can hardly even tell the pumpkin's there. I've also made these pancakes with white pumpkin, and it's also so good. There's so many eggs in this recipe that it has a lot of protein for pancake. The children love it, I love it, and it's pretty healthy. I like to cook these pancakes using 1/3 cup because it makes the pancakes almost a perfect size to fit in the toaster, so it makes warming these up a breeze.